So yesterday I pointed out how celebrating Easter, Ishtar, Ashtoreth, is the breaking of the new covenant. And when ancient Israel broke the new covenant, when they bowed down and worshiped these false gods, bad things happened to them, curses came upon them. They became a prey uh, that other nations around them began to rape and pillage and murder them. And it happened over and over and over again, and still they would go back to Jehovah, the Holy One of Israel, and then they would slip back into idolatry over and over and over and over again. And finally, the rejection of Yehoshua HaMashiach ultimately broke the old covenant. And then what happened was, exactly according to the scripture, the new covenant was given to the Gentiles. What I want to do before I get started on this list of curses that is going to fall upon the Gentiles, I want to point out that are not a people. I want to point out a couple of scriptures that proves that the new covenant was in fact given to the Gentiles. Okay. Romans 9 and verse 25. We'll start in verse 19. You will say then unto me, let me go ahead and do this screen share before I forget. You will say then unto me, why does he yet find fault? For who has resisted his will? No, but, O man, who are you that replies against Jehovah? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, what have you done? Why have you made me this way? Has not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? What if Jehovah, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endures with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he had beforehand prepared unto glory, even us, whom he has called, not just of the Jews, but also of the Gentiles? And he said also in Hosea, I will call them my people, which were not my people. That's the Gentiles. And her beloved, which was not beloved. And it shall come to pass that in the place wherein it was said unto them, you are not my people, they shall be called the children of the living Elohim. Okay. Isaiah, is it Isaiah? Yes, also cried concerning Israel, though the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, a remnant shall be saved, for he will finish the work and cut it short in righteousness, because a short work will Jehovah make upon the earth. And Isaiah said before, except Jehovah of Sabaoth had left us a seed, we would be as Sodom and Gomorrah. What shall we say then? That the Gentiles, which followed not after righteousness in the beginning, attained righteousness, even the righteousness of which is faith. But Israel, which sought after the Torah of righteousness, has not attained the Torah of righteousness. Why? Because they didn't seek it by faith, but as it were by the works of the Torah, for they stumbled at the stumbling stone. As it is written, behold, I lay in Zion a stumbling stone and a rock of offense, and whosoever believes on him shall not be ashamed. So this is proof that the new covenant was indeed given to the Gentiles. And Israel stumbled, as you can read in Romans 11. And you can read in Romans 29 that Israel would stumble. And as I gone over yesterday, Jehovah told Moses to get himself and Yehoshua together in one place, and he's going to tell them what Israel is going to do. And it happened. Shame and confusion of face happened to Israel. Rejection of the people of Israel happened. Rejection of the holy place of Jerusalem happened. But it won't be forever. And Moses said in Deuteronomy 30, as I pointed out yesterday, restoration of Israel will be restored. And all these curses of Deuteronomy 30, 29 are going to be laid upon Israel's enemies. Who are they? The Gentiles. They didn't have to be Israel's enemies. Paul warned in Romans 11, warned the Romans not to be Israel's enemies. Don't do it. But they didn't listen. 2,000 years of history proves that they didn't listen. So now, when the time of the Gentiles is come to an end, which is, that time is shortly to arrive, the new covenant will be snatched away from the Gentiles, taken away from the Gentiles, and given to the whole house of Israel. It is written right here, Deuteronomy 30, verses 1 through 10, as I read yesterday. And a part of this snatching away of the new covenant from the Gentiles and giving it to the children of Israel is this. Verse 7, and Jehovah your Elohim will put all these curses upon your enemies, on them that hate you, which persecuted you. And you know, history is a witness against Christianity, against Gentile Christianity today, for what they have done to the Jews. Mocked, ridiculed, raped, pillaged, and murdered. And they believed that they had the right to do it when they were warned not to do such things. They rejected the sign between Yehoshua and the church, which was that you love one another. They rejected that sign. And instead, they chose the sign of Satan. Sun worship on Sunday. Easter worship on Sunday in honor of the sun god and the sun god's mother, Ashtoreth or Ishtar. The sun god being Baal. They did all the evil things that ancient Israel did. The things that Jehovah finally rejected them for. Now, all the curses that are written in this book of Deuteronomy are going to be poured out upon Israel's enemies, the Gentile Christians. So let's have a look at the list of curses. It is very long. But I have to read this as a testimony against you Christians. But it shall come to pass in verse 15 that if you will not listen to the voice of Jehovah your Elohim to do and observe all his commandments and the statutes which I command you this day, that all these curses shall come upon you and they will overtake you. And the curses are beginning to happen now. Cursed shall be you in the city, and cursed shall you be in the field. Cursed shall be your basket and your store. Cursed shall be the fruit of your body and the fruit of your land. Now, I want to point something out here. The European leaders and the leaders in the United States, out of greed, taxation greed, led the people astray, causing the women to go out into the workforce and not have babies to replace them because of momentary greed by the government. They seduced the women to do these things, and then they didn't have babies. Then the governments, especially in Europe, realized that there was no replacement of the older generation. So what did they do? They invited their enemies in as replacements, thinking they could get these people to work like the European nationals did. And that's why you have what is happening today in Europe. Greed by government officials through taxation. Okay, and so now, cursed shall be the fruit of your body and the fruit of your land, and the increase of your cattle and the flock of your sheep. Cursed shall be you when you come in, and cursed shall be when you go out. All of these things are going to happen to Christian Europe and other Christian nations beyond. Jehovah shall send upon you cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that you set your hand unto for to do, until you be destroyed, and until you perish quickly because of the wickedness of your doings, whereby you have forsaken me. Jehovah shall make the pestilence cleave unto you, until he has consumed you off the land. Yes, this is backed up in Daniel. I will stop right here and I'll go to Daniel. Watch this. It's Daniel 2. Make sure that I'm at the right translation. Verse 40. Europe, Rome, the kingdom of iron. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, forasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and subdues all things, as iron breaks all these before it, and it did, shall it break into pieces and bruise. And wherefore, as you saw the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. This is where we're at right now, especially with the 10 toes. And there shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as you saw the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes and the feet were part of iron and part of miry clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas you saw the iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, like they're doing today. But they shall not cleave to one another, because the people of iron do not mix with the people of miry clay. And in those days, the days of these kings, shall the Elohim of heaven set up a kingdom, which is going to be in Jerusalem, and that kingdom will never be destroyed, contrary to what your preacher says. Your preacher says Jerusalem will be destroyed again. No. They will be defeated. The enemies will be defeated at Jerusalem, which will never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to the Gentiles, to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. For as much as you saw that the stone that was cut out of the mountain without hands, the stone was cut out of Mount Zion. And it will break in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great Elohim has made it known to the king what shall come hereafter, and the dream is certain. Now, up here, it talks about it again. And it says in the verse 35, then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold. These are all ancient and current Gentile kingdoms, broken to pieces together, and they became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away so that there was no place found for them. They are going to be exiled from their own lands, and no place will be found for them. The same thing that happened to ancient Israel is going to happen to the enemies of Israel in the last days. Their land will remain vacant and empty, and they will have to run to the Americas, and there won't be any room. Let's go back to Deuteronomy 28 and continue. Jehovah, this is in verse 22, shall smite you with consumption and with a fever and with an inflammation. All right? And with extreme burning and with the sword and with blasting and with mildew. And they all shall pursue you until you perish. And your sky that is over your head shall be brass, and the earth that is under your feet shall be iron. Jehovah shall make the rain of your land powder and dust. Revelation 11. Verse 1, and there was given unto me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood and said, rise and measure the temple. That's because the temple was still up and still active in those days. And the altar and them that worship therein. But the court which is outside the temple leave out and measure it not, because it is given unto the Gentiles. What will the Gentiles do? The holy city they will tread under for 42 months. When did that happen? 67 CE to 70 CE. And I will give power to, and what will happen in the last days, he says, and I will give power unto my 2 witnesses. And they shall prophesy 1,260 days. This is an obvious retaliation. Clothed in sackcloth, these are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks be standing before the Elohim of the earth. If any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth and devours their enemies. In other words, they will be able to call fire down from heaven, just like Eliyahu the prophet did. And if any man will hurt them, he must be in this manner be killed. These have the power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy. Now you see, folks, this is going to happen to the Gentiles. Moses said that all these curses, every one of them, are going to fall upon the enemies of Israel. Verse 23, and the heaven which is over your head shall be brass, and the earth that is under your feet shall be iron. And Jehovah shall make the rain of your land powder and dust. From heaven it shall come down upon you until you are destroyed. Let me tell you something. Europe will not be able to survive 3.5 years of no rain. Neither will any land on whom this curse falls upon. Jehovah shall cause you to be smitten before your enemies. This is going to happen to the enemies of Israel. Rome, Europe, Christians, because they persecuted Israel. You will go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. You're going to come and fight against Israel, and you're going to run for your lives 7 different ways against them or away from them. And you shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. Well, according to Daniel 2, they are going to removed from their lands and scattered to the 4 winds, right here. Become like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind shall carry them away, and no place will be found for them. Prepare yourselves, European Christians. Prepare yourselves, you worshippers of Ishtar. This is going to happen. Because you thumbed your nose at Israel, Israel's Messiah, and Israel's Elohim Jehovah. Verse 26, and your carcass shall be food for all the fowls of the air and the beasts of the earth, and no man will shoo them away. Ezekiel 39. Verse 17, and you, son of man, thus says Jehovah Elohim, speak unto every fowl and to every beast of the field, and assemble yourselves and come and gather yourselves on every side to my sacrifice that I do sacrifice for you, even a great sacrifice upon the mountains of Israel, that you may eat flesh and drink blood, and you shall eat the flesh of the mighty and drink the blood of the princes of the earth, of rams and of lambs and of goats and of bullocks, and all of them fatlings of Bashan. They will be crossing the border from Bashan into the Golan Heights, you see. And you will eat until you be full, and drink blood until you be drunken of my sacrifice, which I have sacrificed for you. Thus shall you be filled at my table with horses, chariots, and mighty men, with all the men of war. Yes, folks, everything is written carefully, isn't it? Enemies of Israel, those of you European Christians who block the door to the kingdom in Jerusalem, while at the same time celebrating Ishtar, demanding that Israel go to the 1967 borders or pre-1967 borders. Unbelievable. So this is going to happen to the Gentiles. Verse 27, Jehovah will smite you with the botch of Egypt, and with emerods, and with the scab, and with an itch which cannot be healed. First bowl of wrath, anyone? And it's already happened. It's already happened. And it's going to happen again. Jehovah shall smite you with madness and with blindness and astonishment of heart. This is happening right now among the Europeans. You will grope at noonday like the blind gropes in darkness, and you shall not prosper in your ways. It's over, Europe. Your end is here. And you shall be only oppressed and spoiled forevermore, and no man is going to save you. Christian Europe, Roman Christians. You will betroth a wife, and another man will lie with her. That's happening right now in Europe. And the European government has invited the rapists to come in and do this. And then has told the people to be quiet and let it happen, or else. You will build a house, and you shall not dwell therein. You will plant vineyards, and you shall not gather the grapes thereof. Your ox shall be slain before your eyes, and you shall not eat thereof. Your donkey, your mode of transportation will be violently taken away from before your face, and shall not be restored to you. Your sheep shall be given unto your enemies, and you shall have nothing to rescue them. Your sons and daughters shall be given to another people. Did you read the story about the, what is it? Was it the Norwegian fellow who had his daughters taken away from him and given to a Muslim family? And he had to flee with his daughters to another country? These things are happening right now to you, Easter worshiping Christians, for what you have done to Israel. And your eyes will search and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might. You will be helpless. The fruit of your land and all your labors shall another nation which does not know you eat it up. They don't want to assimilate with you. Your government has handed your goods over to another nationality, and they're eating it up. And you can't do anything about it. It's already happening to you, Roman Europe, you Christians who hated and despised and persecuted Israel. And you shall be only oppressed and crushed always, so that you shall be mad, insane for the sight of your eyes, which you shall see. And isn't that what's happening right now? Jehovah shall smite you in the knees and in the legs, and with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of your foot unto the top of your head. Jehovah shall bring you and your king, which you shall set over you, unto a nation which neither your fathers have known, and there shall you serve other gods of wood and stone. And you do that, and you did that on Easter Sunday. You did. And you shall become astonishment and a proverb and a byword among all the nations where, yes, now Europe. Now it's your turn, Roman Europe. It is your turn to become an astonishment, a proverb, a byword, a joke. You shall carry much seed into the field, and you shall gather but a little in, because the locusts shall consume it. It's coming. Just wait until the 3.5 years of no rain, and you'll see it. You shall plant vineyards and dress them, but you shall neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, because the worms shall eat them. And you shall have olive trees throughout all your coasts, O Europe, but you shall not anoint yourself with oil, for your olives will cast off its fruit. You shall beget sons and daughters, but you shall not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Yes, they will. All your trees and the fruit of your land shall the locust consume, and the stranger that is within you shall rise up above you very, very high. And of course, you see, folks, in Great Britain, who do they have for their mayor of London? See, these things are already starting to happen to Europe. and you shall come down very low. That stranger, is now going to be your money lender, and you won't be lending to him. He will be the head, and you shall be the tail. That's going to happen to you, Europe. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon you and pursue you and overtake you till you be destroyed. For the Gentiles, or for Israel it was, because they didn't keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded. But for the Gentiles, for the Europeans, it will be because you persecuted Israel. There's no getting around that fact. Because you served not Jehovah your Elohim with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, instead you chose Ishtar and Baal, Gentiles. For the abundance of all things, therefore you shall go and serve your enemies, which Jehovah shall send against you in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, lacking all things. And he will put a yoke of iron upon your neck until he has destroyed you. And Jehovah will bring a nation against you from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as an eagle flies, a nation whose tongue you will not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, that shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young, and he will eat the fruit of your cattle, of your fruit of your land, until you be destroyed. And once again, this is happening right now. And the Europeans invited the enemy in. Incredible, because they are mad. They invited the enemy in. Which shall also not leave you any corn, wine, or oil, or an increase of your cattle, or the flocks of your sheep, until he has destroyed you. And he will besiege you in all your gates until your high fence walls come down. Wherein you trusted therein in all your land, he shall besiege you in your gates throughout all your land, and you shall eat the fruit of your own body, the flesh of your sons. You Europeans, you think you're vegans and vegetarians, don't you? You think you're better than everybody else. You go and point the finger at disdain of people who eat the meat of animals. And you even point the finger of disdain at the Chinese and the Koreans who eat dog meat. Well, you're going to do much worse, Europe. You are going to eat the fruit of your own body, the flesh of your own sons and daughters. Yes, it will be so bad for you. Yes, these curses are coming upon you, Europe, Christian Europe, Roman Christianity, because you persecuted Israel. You will be forced to eat your own sons and your daughters, especially those of you who live in the cities. Especially those of you who are vegans and vegetarians. You think you wouldn't be willing to do it? Mankind is only 48 hours away from depravity, whether you believe it or not. In the siege and in the straitness wherewith your enemy shall distress you. And that happened to Jerusalem. It did. And the Romans did it to Jerusalem. Now, because Rome did this to Jerusalem and caused the Jews inside the walls of Jerusalem to eat their own sons and their daughters, it must be done to Rome. And so that man who is tender among you and very delicate, you know who you are, you men, you beta males, who wouldn't dream of killing a mouse. You are so delicate. His eyes shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remainder of his children which he shall leave. And so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat. This is going to happen to you. Roman Christianity, European Christianity, because of what you did to the Jews. Please continue to listen to me. Do not be so disgusted that you stop the video, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen, folks. There's no getting around it. Because this tender beta male has nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness, which where your enemies shall distress you in all your gates. And the tender and delicate woman among you, yes, the little vegetarian, vegan woman among you, who wouldn't harm a little bitty chick, who would not adventure to set her sole of her foot upon the ground, for the delicateness and the tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her own children, and toward the young one that comes from between her legs. And toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for lack of the things, and she'll do it secretly, in the siege and straitness wherewith your enemy shall distress you in your gates. This is going to happen to you, Christians, because you won't have any food to eat. The only thing you're going to have left to eat is your own children. You go about and you murder them. Government-sanctioned murder. Abortions. You do this while at the same time claiming that you wouldn't even harm a little baby chick in your foolish and demonic, warped doctrines of demons, veganism, and vegetarianism. Now, so he told the Israelites, if you will not do all of the words of this Torah that are written in this book, that you may fear the glorious and the fearful name of God. Look what King James Version did. Look what they did. Let me show you something. This goes to show you that even the King James translators did not fear the name, the glorious name and fearful name, frightful name of what? It's Jehovah, not the Lord. The Lord means Baal, Baal, the one whom Christians worship. Jehovah Elohim. They don't fear that. So guess what's going to happen? Now this is going to happen to you too, Christians, because you do not fear the name, the fearful name of Jehovah Elohim. Because of that, because you replaced the name of Jehovah for Woden, or Odin. This is the God of the Germans, and he's also Zeus, whom Jesus is named after. And Zeus is Satan. So you change the name because you do not fear the name of Jehovah, Elohim. Then Jehovah will make your plague extraordinary, and plagues of your seed, even great plagues of long continuity, and sore sickness and of long continuance. He will bring you all the diseases of Egypt, the third world, and it's already starting to happen, which you were afraid of, and they will cleave unto you. And also every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this Torah, will Jehovah bring upon you until you are destroyed. I pointed out yesterday in the video yesterday, you Gentile Christians, you are not, even though you think you are not better than Israel. You cannot escape these things that Israel could not escape. You're not going to escape them. And you, Gentile Christians, you are great in number right now, but you will be left few in number, whereas you were once as the stars in the the multitude of heaven for multitude, because you would not obey the voice of Jehovah. In what way did you not obey it? The words of Paul in Romans 11, he said, don't boast against the branches, but you had to go and do it, didn't you? You had to go and persecute Israel, didn't you? You couldn't help yourself, could you? And it shall come to pass that as Jehovah rejoiced over you to do you good, yes, he did. It is written in the book of Hosea, and Paul backed it up, that he was going to do good to the Gentiles. But what happened? Now he's going to rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to nothing. Why? Because you persecuted Israel. And you shall be plucked up off the land where you went. Yes, you're going to be plucked out of Europe. You're going to be plucked out of Rome. There is nobody going to be living there. It will be an empty desert wasteland. And of course, it says, Jehovah shall scatter you among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other. Just like he did to Israel, he's going to do this to you, Europe, Roman Christians, worshippers of Ishtar, Easter. It's going to be done to you. And among these nations you will find no ease, and the sole of your foot shall have no rest. Let me show you something. Revelation 14 and verse 11. We'll start in verse 9. Oh, we'll start in verse 8. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations to drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. What city was that? Let me show you. Okay. Oh, hold on. What happened here? Ecclesia and synagogue. All right. This right here. This is the great whore. This is Babylon the Great. This is Christianity, Roman Christianity, lording it over the Jews right here. The Jews on this side, Christianity on this side. There are some better pictures here. The golden cup that is in her hand is right here. She has a crown on her head, and she says she will not be a queen. She will sit as a queen and will not be a widow. Okay? Revelation 14. She has made all nations to drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the third beast followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, that graven image that you just worshipped on Easter Sunday, and receive this mark in his forehead, you know, the one that you put on your head on Lent, that one. It's not just Catholicism that does this. You know who you are. And they make that insignia, that mark, with their right hand when they pray. The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Jehovah, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And they will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment ascends up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, those who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receives the mark of his name. I pointed, the number of his name is XES. The name is XESUS. 600 years ago, there was no such a name as JESUS because J was not in the vocabulary. It was XESUS. XES is 666. Look it up for yourself. Among these nations you shall find no ease, neither the sole of your foot shall have rest. So right here in Revelation 14, verse 11. And the smoke of their torment ascends up forever and ever, and they shall have no rest day nor night, those who worship the beast. So clearly, all these plagues are going to fall upon Roman Christianity, those who worship Ishtar on Sunday morning. Ishtar and Baal. But Jehovah shall give you a trembling heart. I pointed that out in Psalm 69 yesterday. And failing of the eyes and sorrow of the mind, and your life shall hang in doubt before you. Oh, yes, it will, Europeans. And you shall fear day and night, and you will have no assurance of your life. In the morning you will say, would Jehovah it were evening, and in the evening you would say, would Jehovah it was morning, for fear that is in your heart, wherewith you shall fear, and for the sight of your eyes which you shall see. All right. Let's go to let's see. Luke 21, verse 26. Until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. That means Jerusalem will be trodden underfoot. In other words, the Gentiles will be, just like you're doing right now in East Jerusalem, trampling over Jerusalem until the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. Then what happens? Verse 25, and there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and in stars, and upon the earth distress of the Gentiles. Tribulation upon the Gentiles, upon the nations. That's, hey, look, I proved it to you. It's right here. Tribulation upon the Gentiles. So after the tribulation of those days shall be tribulation upon the Gentiles. with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth, for the power of heaven shall be shaken. You will say, would Jehovah it were morning for fear in your heart, and where with fear you shall fear, and for the sight of your eyes which you shall see. The things that you're going to see are going to frighten many to death. Gentiles, when the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, when the time of the Gentiles rule over Israel comes to an end, the time of Gentiles tribulation begins. It is written right here in Luke 21. Jerusalem shall be trodden of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. And then what happens? And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the distress, fear, upon the earth, distress of the Gentiles. What does distress mean? Just to prove my point. Anguish. Well, didn't Paul use that word? Distress and anguish. All right, let's go there. Romans 2 and verse 9. What does it say right there? You see that word? Tribulation and anguish upon every soul of man that does evil, of the Jew first, Jerusalem. And it did happen. And also of the Hellene. Now, Hellene is Western civilization. It's not just the Greeks, it's not just the Romans, it's the entirety of Western civilization. Just make sure that you see the word Hellene there so that you do not get confused. Hellene. And if you study Hellenism, you will see it is the entirety of Western civilization, as I pointed out in a previous video. Now, so just as in verse 68, Jehovah brought my forefathers back to the land of Egypt in ships, so shall the Hellenes, the Romans, the worshippers of Ishtar and Baal, Zeus and Jesus and Ashtoreth or Easter, so will you be scattered. You will run for your lives. It says, by the way I spoke unto you, and you shall see your land no more, and you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and nobody will buy you. That's right. Going back to Daniel 2. Verse 35, then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and gold broken to pieces together and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away so that there was no place found for them. You are going to be unwanted. They will close the gates on you. Yes, tribulation and anguish. Paul talked about it in Romans 9. No, in Romans 2, verse 9. Tribulation and distress for every soul of man that does evil, of the Jew first and also of the Hellene. The Jew got theirs first, exactly as Paul foretold, and now Western civilization, aka Rome, Christianity, worshippers of Easter, are going to get theirs. Everything, every curse that is written in this book in Deuteronomy 28 is going to happen. Why? Why? I'll show you once again why. Verse 30. Chapter 30. While restoration is happening to Israel, it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon you, Israel, a blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you shall call them into mind among the nations where Jehovah your Elohim has driven you. And you shall return unto Jehovah your Elohim, and you shall obey his voice according to all I command you, though ifs, ands, or buts. This day, you and your children, you'll do it with all of your heart and with all of your soul. And Jehovah will return your captivity and have compassion upon you. And he will return and gather you from all the nations where Jehovah your Elohim has scattered you. And if any of yours be driven into outmost parts of the horizon, the sky, from there will Jehovah your Elohim gather you, from there will he fetch you, and he will bring you into the land that your fathers possess, and you shall possess it, and he will do good to Israel again, and he will multiply their seed above their fathers, and Jehovah your Elohim will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Jehovah your Elohim with all of your heart, with all of your soul, so that you may live. And then Jehovah your Elohim will put all these curses upon your enemies and on them that hate you, which persecuted you. You know who you are. You know you and your ancestors have done this great evil before Jehovah by persecuting the Jews. And now, all those curses, which I just listed off, that Jehovah specifically told Moses, he said, these curses are going to happen to you.